Hey, what's up, y'all? You know what time it is? You back with Browns Only with myself, Rudy, your host. And today there is plenty of Browns news to go around as training camp has begun from Berea. So we will go ahead and tell you what's going on with these new look Cleveland Browns for this year, 2026. We already know what some of the big camp battles are because I brought them to you. Big Root Promotions and Entertainment brings you Browns Only from Dayton, Ohio. Feel free to support the show. It's now streaming on, of course, YouTube. And then, of course, you can also find it on whatever platform you get your podcasts. But I do want to go ahead and start off with announcing a couple re-signings that the Browns did recently. And Denzel Ward, very deserving. We've talked about it on the show quite a bit. There was, rumors of trade talks, as like I said, you'll have with any premier player as he still is at age 29 in the league. He had 2 years left remaining on his contract to be a Cleveland Brown, but he got a 2-year extension worth $62 million. It makes him the highest paid defensive back of all time, cornerback in the league. And also, currently, right now, he is the highest paid corner in the league, with some other notable corners receiving extensions this offseason. He again becomes, for the second time, the highest paid corner in the league. Well deserving for Denzel Ward, a guy from the Cleveland area who's played his whole career here, and hopefully he'll be able to finish his career as a Brown. A lot of speculation still that, oh yeah, they could have, it's just like Miles, they could have re-signed him just to trade him, and you never know what the future holds, right? And they talk about timelines. Like this is like a Marvel multiverse or something of that nature, right? No, it's nothing like that. He's been a very, I would say, excellent, great player. Again, to me, a Hall of Famer. If he even ends his career right now, sometimes you don't see him put up the numbers in terms of INTs, but teams, just like I heard a comparison to Darrell Revis, how teams, were isolated from throwing to his side of the field. That happened a lot of times. You saw it happen in that Steelers game late when Aaron Rodgers thought he might could victimize catch Denzel Ward slipping. Denzel Ward slipping said Matumbo finger said, no, 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 my friend. And 2 times in a row at the end of that game, we can reflect back on that. But we can also look forward to the future. And Todd Monken came out and he said, obviously, the coach of the Browns, commented on Ward's extension. And he said, often, in football, you don't really get paid for what you have done, but more what you will do. And it is good to see that Ward is, part of the Browns' future, and he should be rewarded not only for what he hopefully will do for the Browns, but obviously what he's done for the team so far, and being a great spokesperson, and also being a great leader on the field and having his play back it up. He does still, have PBUs, obviously pass breakups, like we talked about in that Steelers game or throughout the season when the ball comes his way. Another defensive back that was extended for the Browns in the past couple days, actually just yesterday, I believe, was Grant Delpit, who got a multi-year extension. Now, whereas Denzel Ward had 2 years left on his contract, it's trade speculation. Grant Delpit, similarly, in the last year of his contract, some people asked if he was performing a hold in early in camp, but we weren't sure of what was going on. That was around the same time Myles Garrett was getting traded, but he has been participating. Everyone has been participating in training camp. We'll get to that in just a few moments as we foreshadow how training camp went. The first day of training camp yesterday, I believe it was July 29th. And yeah, it's a great time for the Cleveland Browns as Grant Delpit, again, going into the last year of his contract, did get a multi-year, 3-year extension at about $18 million per year. So he'll be around with the team for a while as well, unless you want to take the negative Nancy standpoint of saying, well, they could have just re-signed him to trade him, similar to a Miles Garrett, right? And that's one of the things I want to try to work in and address before the end of the show is I think a lot of times what the negativity is coming from some of I guess you could say my peers, but not really. I consider myself in a lane of my own. Again, myself, Rudy, bringing you Browns only, but really just updated Browns news of what's going on a lot of times around the league or around sports. By now, of course, we know LeBron did not resign with the Cavaliers. We could say resign. Obviously he played for the Lakers last year, but a two-time Cavalier started off for the Cavs. He's going to take his skills to Philadelphia and look for some cheesesteaks while living in New York. But on Browns only, we don't care about that right now. We don't care about Mario Hozona getting signed and then cut. What was that about? That was ridiculous. We're not talking about the Cavs. We're talking about Browns only training camp practice, but practicing hard. Let's go through these quarterback numbers from the first day of training camp. Couple other pieces of news. We talked about Delpit getting re-signed. He's been an excellent player for the Browns. Again, a former first-round pick several years ago. He's going on, I want to say, his third contract now with the Browns. And again, at the safety position, he's able to give you a lot, whether it be, a box safety who's thought to be more of a free safety, early in his career, or even a guy that had corner skills that could play the safety position. But he has been primarily a box safety, a guy that can move around for the Browns. At the strong safety, check the tight end. Also, too, we want to talk about Malik Collins being put on the PUP list. Right now, that defensive tackle position, in my opinion, it could use a little work, right? We talk about Vita Vea, and we hadn't announced that on the show. He's requested a trade from the Buccaneers. A lot of speculation that the Browns might be interested in trying to acquire Vita Vea. But don't forget, of course, the Browns did acquire Kalia Davis. Kalia Davis actually left the field on day one of training camp. Trying to hold off on talking about training camp, but we pretty much touched on all the news. The last piece of news I would give you for the Browns that just came up is the Browns did work out Jadeveon Clowney, who was formerly here with obviously Cleveland a couple years ago. Don't forget how he left Cleveland. A lot of people want to go back to that. It wasn't on the best of terms because he did question how the scheme was set up to have Miles just be able to rush and do nothing else. And I asked myself, Jadeveon, why don't you come back and do that? Just come back and do that. Do what Miles did. You complained about it at the time. Won't you be that guy that's just a designated pass rusher for us? DPR touched on it on past shows. We need a guy that's just an experienced pass rusher. Now, to me, the Davion, he never really lived up to what he was supposed to be. Similar to a Mario Williams, obviously an early defensive end draft choice, very early, really out of South Carolina. That big hit against Michigan. You can go look it up on YouTube if you want. I think that elevated him in the draft. I mean, it's like almost like a YouTube sensation hit. And I mean, one of the aspects of social media now, he's had a solid career, right? He's had longevity. He actually even played solid for us. I just think, again, as a pass rusher, sometimes leaves a lot to be desired. Always been solid against the run. You have a similar player to that in Jared Verse, but the Browns did bring in Jadeveon Clowney for a workout. Were said to have kept him here for a long time. So a big question is, should the Browns bring in Jadeveon Clowney? And maybe later today, we'll see after the first day of camp, which was yesterday, that if the Browns will sign Jadeveon Clowney to some kind of contract, or if that was just a workout. Because a lot of times when it gets reported as the Browns brought him in for a workout and are very interested in signing him, or just any team in the league brought somebody in for a workout, when that's reported like that, a lot of times the signing doesn't happen, or it'll be reported as that player signed with the team. That'd be the headline, right? In this case, former player comes in for a workout, tryout type of deal. Don't forget, I believe, recently he was in Baltimore with Wild Monken was there as well. So Monken thinks he can help the defense and he can get the best out of Jadeveon Clowney. Then, yeah, let's see what we got. So when we talk about training camp yesterday, there are some very interesting happenings. Let's go through the quarterback completion tracker, shall we? Now, it's Deshaun's day to start with the the they with the ones, right? So he was with the first team, and his stat line basically was 12 for 22 with two interceptions. What? The back to back interceptions, in fact. So one interception was Denzel Ward intercepting a pass that he threw, I would say, to like the left sideline. And it was trailing the receiver a little bit. And Denzel Ward made an outstanding play to intercept that, kind of showing like why he got that extension, right? So Watson's 12 for 22, no touchdowns, two picks. The other pick was to Damari Mathis, who also left activities. Royer was the only other guy not participating, not with the injury designation, but for personal reasons. But again, we had Kalia Davis that left the field, and also Damari Mathis. Like he obviously it was after that interception where he victimized Watson for a second pick, and it was actually on back-to-back plays. That was very disconcerting if you're looking at Watson with the ones. In the second case, of course, a guy that just actually got to the team last week, getting the interception from him, and we've seen this kind of inconsistent play from Watson, whether we say in games or even in practices in the past. Now Shador looked crisp with the second team. Did have the rookie wide receivers with the second team as well. Threw a nice deep completion to KC Concepcion, who held on to it deep. Now we have Shador listed as 16 for 19 with zero touchdowns, zero interception. I will say that that pass to Concepcion, I believe, was a touchdown. Yeah, so also had another deep completion to Floria in training camp. We've seen some highlights of that. And also the long pass to Concepcion, at least another nice pass to Boston. They were working on the short game a lot. So Shador 16 for 19 was even more interesting. Is Dilly? Dylan Gabriel was getting some reps. 7 for 9 for the day, zero touchdowns and a pick. Now, his pick went to Coates. So Michael Coates Jr. Um, out of West Virginia is a undrafted free agent, let me say rookie, who will look to fight for one of those cornerback spots, maybe a cornerback 5 or 6. It sounds funny, but yeah, potentially could carry that many corners. Definitely could be a guy that tries to latch on with the practice squad. Now even Taylor Green got into action, went 3 for 5. So you see the reps for Dylan Gabriel and Taylor Green kick up. Shador, I would say, had the best day of the quarterbacks. Of course, 16 for 19. Told you about some of the picks, some of the guys that left practice due to, we'll say injury designation, but hopefully nothing serious. Hopefully, guys will be back real soon. We talk about Kalia Davis again. We talk about that defensive tackle depth. Now, I think Aiden Huntington, for example, is a guy that plays like defensive tackle and defensive end, but he's actually listed as defensive end. Of course, you got the young Logan Fano, for example, who's going to be battling for one of those defensive end spots. And then you got your obviously primary three when we're talking about the end spot in particular. So we're talking about McGuire and Isaiah McGuire. We're talking about Alex Wright, who was just re signed at the end of last season for about 3 years, $33 million. And then, of course, Jared Verse, V8, that was brought over in the Miles Garrett trade, along with the Hall of Picks. Verse, look for him to be, a vocal leader on the defense. But again, we look at that defensive tackle spot. Kalia Davis leaving practice was not a good omen. You look at the depth being in question there at the defensive tackle spot with Malik Collins, again, being on the pup list. We don't know if we'll see him really for off-season activities. You can assume you likely will not see him in preseason games. Will he be ready for week one is more of a big question there. Now we know that Mason Graham, for example, first round draft pick from last year, 5 overall, will be somebody that they'll depend on heavily at that defensive tackle spot. And we want to know if we can get anything from Michael Hall Jr. moving forward as a Browns fan, as somebody that, knows he's a second round draft pick with potentially a high ceiling because he's only 21 years old. We've talked about Michael Hall Jr. a lot. Will he be able to step up and be that second defensive tackle? I hope that Aiden Huntington and then also too, Alex Wright, for example, can take some of those defensive tackle snaps. We're going to need a guy like Kalia Davis to stay healthy. Now, he was from San Francisco last year. We signed him in free agency, but we are going to need a player of his ilk, other guys in the mix, like a Sam Kamara. He's been around the Browns for a while. I'm kind of, I hate to say it, kind of hoping that he doesn't make the roster because to me that'd be an indication that we don't have the prerequisite depth that we need. Should consider all moves, bringing in veterans like Jadeveon Clowney. Definitely go ahead and sign him, even if he's not somebody that's going to make the 53. I think that his depth will definitely help through camp, especially when you have young guys up front, even undrafted free agents that are trying to, stick to the roster, at least, in a practice squad role, like a Tyreek Sapp, for example, talked about on previous shows for Florida, to have somebody like that, basically, again, we talked about the way that he left Cleveland, but he is a veteran. He's been in the league for a while. He knows pretty much the ins and outs. Sure has a lot of, great pass rushing techniques, a lot of wisdom that he can impart upon young players that could benefit them. You do need a guy in there like that. Even when you look at a verse, for example, he's not long in the tooth. He's 25 years old, 2 years out of Florida State. Don't forget, he's from Dayton. Very excited about Jared Verse and what he's going to bring to this front seven for the Cleveland Browns. But when you lose guys like a Shelby Bryant, for example, excuse me, not Shelby Bryant, Shelby Harris, who was a veteran that played for about 3 years from the Browns, former Bronco, now plays for the Giants. That kind of veteran leadership, for example, vocal leadership. Hopefully, a guy like Jared Verse will be able to help. A guy even like Quincy Williams, we talk about in that front seven, but I didn't really want to delve into the linebacker spot as much. But I would say an update from the linebacker spot was that Easton Macarenas Arnold was the third linebacker, right? Remember when I said in past shows, I was like, well, it'll be interesting to see who is that third linebacker if we're running like a base 4-3, right? We don't know exactly what scheme Rudy's going to run. No, not me. Again, Rudy representing the Browns on Browns only, but we're talking about Mike Rutenberg, the defensive coordinator from the Browns. What elements, will he tinker with? Will he bring? Obviously, we know there's going to have to be some creative pressure, right? So, like Schlesinger, again, when we talk about, we're not going to talk about the linebacker position personnel wise. We'll talk about it strategically. You can look for maybe a little bit more sack production, right? Because we're going to need to uh, how you want to say we're going to just supplement or make up for some of the sack production that was lost with the lost trade of Miles Garrett, right? Because that is something that can't be taken for granted. So you're going to have to bring not only corner safety pressure, and then when we look at the future of that secondary, for example. You've seen some of the young guys making plays along with Denzel Ward. So like a Damari Mathis, again, guys that are competing for like a fourth corner behind Miles Harden, and even a Michael Coach Jr., a fifth corner possibility, right? So guys like Dom Jones got cut recently out of Colorado, undrafted free agent. So it's making room for guys like Coach Jr. or a Nate Evans, out of Delaware, guys like that, if they can make plays, continue to be physical, make their presence known in the preseason, get picks, stand out so that they can contribute on special teams, then we'll see, right? We have spots available, right? And we know that the Browns pay well. They pay players for performance that do well. And for example, Ward's a good example of that. You got to pay your best players. You can't have people avidly saying, again, I'm hearing this too much from whether it's nationwide reporters or local. The Browns are showing that with the Miles Garrett trade, they're not trying to win this year. I'll bet you any amount of money that you got, put it like that, right? That's reasonable. That you ask Todd Monken, and he truly believes that they are trying to win within that locker room. To the 53 men that are going to make the roster that hit training camp yesterday in Berea, you ask them, are they trying to win? I bet you they will say something like, hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. All right, all right, all right. I said I wasn't going to sing on the show no more, but that was more like some Drake singing. I'm saying, hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. I mean, oh yeah, all right, oh yeah, all right, oh yeah, all right. I put the headphones on, man. I don't know. I get into a whole different mind state. It just switched to something different there. But this show is something different. So I give you all kind of Browns knowledge and info. I told you I'll switch it up. I'll tell you about LeBron James switching sides. going to Philadelphia. You know I don't like PA sports. I do not. I barely like Philly cheesesteaks. No, I'm joking. Everybody loves Philly cheesesteaks. So from that aspect, I can't be mad. But what about Bronny? Jalen Brown said Bronny was garbage. We're not even going there. That's salaciousness. No, we're just talking about the Browns. So we're talking about training camp, and it was a lovely show, really talking about training camp. I know we talked about how Shador went 16 for 19 in the first day of camp. And again, I'm getting like people saying, well, we didn't really see much, and come on. And again, they didn't credit him with any touchdowns, but you can't tell me that Concepcion wasn't going down that sideline. So let's not do this. Right now, people are like reluctantly saying Shador has the edge. Just embrace it, y'all. Just embrace. Throw your wrists up, man. Throw your wrists up. What's up? What's really up? Tell me what's going on. Because y'all know what time it is. Y'all know what time it is. It's the time to move forward with this young team. If you didn't catch the vibes, then what are we doing? And it's okay to re-sign Denzel Ward. He's been the best player in the secondary for 5+ years. It's okay to re-sign Grant Delpit after battling through injuries and being a perfect professional, just like Denzel Ward. He's shown that he's a top 10 safety in the league, and he's very dependable. And he's been, I would say, durable and dependable after battling um, injuries early in his career, and he wants to be here. What's wrong with bringing in a veteran on a prove-it one-year contract, Jadeveon Clowney? Because, we've been having those guys, whether it's a Zadarius Smith or guys like that have come in, even back to like the Olivier Vernons. They traded for him when Big Deal. That was foolish. But I'm saying, like, brought in guys that at the time were opposite Myles Garrett, who were brought in as veteran pass rushers. And obviously, Verse, we traded for that guy. He's very young. But what about that long in the tooth veteran like a Vita Vea that you might be able to get for a fourth round draft? Because I think Vea is a little bit more coveted than that. And I think we could flip one of our multiple fourth round draft picks for him. But don't forget, we got guys like Zach Zinter. Another thing I wanted to mention about the offensive line. Here's a shakeup, not a shakeup, in the first day of training camp yesterday, right? Maybe you don't want to read too much into it, but Tevin Jenkins, who had oft mentioned, he is a starting caliber guard, formerly of the Bears. He's been a little, like, I wouldn't say banged up or injury prone. He played solid for us last year, but he didn't come in really until the end of the year, around the time Shador started. He ran with the ones yesterday at the right guard position. I do believe we actually had Elton Jenkins at center. Don't forget Parker Brailsford also in the battle for that center spot. But also another thing that's originally what I wanted to talk about, DeJuan Jones was at left tackle with the ones. Now, obviously, Spencer Fano, as time progresses, or even very shortly into camp, right, within the first couple weeks, look for him to get, the reps with the ones. We look at like a lot of the rookies were with the twos. So again, even talking about the two wide receivers. So Boston, Concepcion, they were both with the twos yesterday with Shador. Now, for me, I think that's very strategic because I mean, Monkey knows what time it is. He knows what he's got with Shador. I think he was slanging yesterday. I think that Derek, we saw. I don't even know if you want to say the inconsistency because it was not looking good yesterday from all reports, especially with the multiple interceptions on back-to-back plays. First one, let's say not as much to be his fault, but I think that at this point, he's kind of lost the benefit of the doubt. We can't just excuse away passes that are behind receivers and a premier corner in the league who wasn't there during some of the earlier offseason stuff, which is fine. But now that he's full go and he's out there, he's basically saying like, nah, you got to do a little bit better than that because that's easy. That's easy money. He's like, yah, yah, yah. He said, yah, yah, yah. He said, give me that. That's it. And that's why we had to give him 62 mil additional because he's hungry. He said, man, now I'm the best player on the defense. Now he said V8 verse, hey, welcome to Cleveland. Hey, you're gonna love it, man. I heard you from the D, right down 71 to 70. Hey, it's all good. It's all love. But this is my defense now. Rudy told me that I'm one of the best quarter. I did tell you that, Denzel. I'm one of the best corners in the league. Follow my lead, young fella. Hey, I'm gonna hold up. I'm gonna do my end on the back end. Ben Grant gonna make sure. Don't forget about E-Man, Manuel McNeil Warren. He's the third piece I would say in that secondary, and then we talk about Campbell, right? As far as starters, base 4-3. Remember, I said Easton Macarena Arnold. He was the third linebacker yesterday, right? But we know we still got Hickman, right? So he will be more of a third safety. We'll talk about these intricacies. But me as Rudy, understanding the concepts of Mike Grutenberg and definitely loving what I see from Todd Monken in terms of the way that he ran the first practice under him. We can basically got two spotting with Derek going with the ones, and excuse me, Deshaun Watson, as you may know him. I call him Derek because I feel you have to earn your nicknames. And then you got Young, Showtime, Sanders, Shador, S2, going with the twos, but with the rookies as well, and having Fano as his bookend left tackle. That's really what I think is going to go down. I have never misled you into thinking that it would be something other than that. And again, as much work as Shador can get, with staying with Fano, staying with Boston Concepcion, getting them reps in with him. I'm pretty sure that him and Quinshawn can get on the same page. Him and Fannin had a good connection last year, right? So when we're talking about Shador, I think he's right where he needs to be. We do need to, I wouldn't say not only just give the impression of him having to fight for the starting job, but he should and needs to. Um, I wouldn't say prove, but yeah, he needs to prove it and earn that respect because again, think he's a natural leader, think he's gonna have us in a good place, with his leadership and with his play. So with that being said, that's it for today, folks. I think it was an excellent show to get you excited for the Browns season 2026. It starts with the first practice in training camp. We'll update you throughout. I'm definitely going to give you something before the first preseason game. We'll talk about the group practice with the Bills. Don't forget, 716 is a place that you can also catch me. I might even do some future Bills coverage. You never know. I was about to actually throw on the Bills tee for this show. I said, nah, we're going to always keep Browns on Browns only, but definitely a lot of, I don't know, say love, right? For the 716 going right down Erie, but you got to go through PA. And I seen what you did there, Ron. I seen what I be going through PA sometime too, but a lot of times I just try to go straight through. Yeah, I might spend a couple dollars. Yeah, if I'm in Philly, I'm about to get a cheesesteak. Yeah, I know you staying in New York, but come on. You ain't gotta do us like that. Hey, that's about right. The last time we'll talk about that, but I'm definitely gonna always talk about these Browns. Hey, Browns only. Rudy, bringing it to you live. Hey, last thing you remember, Jerry Judy, he was on Instagram and he said, "Who do you think's gonna be?" And it was doctored. It turned out the video was doctored. He came out later that day and he said, "No, no." He said, "No, look, me and Deshaun, look, me and Deshaun, we friends." And what this is all he said. He said, "Who you want? Who you want to be quarterback?" Cuckoo. Nah, man. Now I'm gonna start taking the show off on. I'm gonna see y'all next show. Peace. Rudy, Browns only signing off. You can hit it up at Dollar Master Yoda 1980 if you want to support it. Again, view it on our platforms like Patreon, YouTube. Hit me up, drop some comments in the chat. We'll respond to some uh, comments from the chat and from some chat topics on the next show, along with getting you ready for the 53-man roster cut downs and predicting what the 53-man roster will look like. But until next show, this has been Rudy. This has been Browns Only. Love bringing you this show, guys. Love bringing you this energy. Very excited for the season. Very excited for training camp. Very excited for Stor and the young receivers. Quinshawn Judkins, new look defense under Rudy. No, not myself. But it will be an exciting defense still. Hopefully, a top 10 defense. And I'll enjoy watching it. I enjoy tackles for loss. I enjoy negative plays. I enjoy interceptions. I enjoy turnovers. I enjoy PBUs. That's why I can appreciate Denzel Ward. And if you don't, and you keep talking about him getting traded, even though he still got extended, you got to question your Browns hood, man. But until then, until next time, go Browns. All right. maybe I shouldn't bark. Maybe I shouldn't sing either, but I know you guys love it. Peace.